The gravel crunched under Thomas Miller's shoes the same way it had when he was 8 years old. Even after 60 years, the old driveway still held the memory of every footstep, every race toward the porch, every return home from a world that had always felt too big. Now, at 72, Thomas stood at the edge of the yard he once knew better than the lines of his own hands. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Don't just watch. Join the movement. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to never miss a story that could open hearts and inspire real change. The paint had peeled. The shutters leaned like tired shoulders. And the wind curled through the porch rails with a whistle he remembered from summer nights when he used to fall asleep listening to crickets. The oak tree, his oak tree, still towered proudly over the yard, thick and broad, where he once swung from a knotted rope. Time had taken many things from him, but somehow it had spared that tree. Thomas took a slow breath. He hadn't come back since his mother passed 30 years ago. Life had swept him into work, marriage, raising kids, then losing the woman he loved. For years he had promised himself he would return sometime, but sometime kept slipping further away now. With his children grown and scattered across the country, with the house he lived in feeling emptier each winter, he realized something had been calling him back here. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was longing. Maybe it was the ache that comes when you realize you've lived more years than you have left. That he stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked under his weight, old friends greeting him after a long absence. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and cedar. Sunlight pushed through the curtains, laying soft patterns on the worn wooden floor. His footsteps echoed through the quiet rooms like the voice of a child calling out, "Mom, I'm home." He swallowed. The living room was smaller than he remembered. Funny how places shrink when you grow up. He ran his fingertips along the fireplace mantel, still scratched where he'd carved a tiny TM when he was 9 and absolutely certain he would grow up to be a cowboy. He moved down the hallway to his old bedroom. The door stuck, just like it used to. When he pushed it open, the sight hit him like a gentle wave. The wallpaper, pale blue with little white stars, was still there. He laughed softly. "Mom, you kept everything." On the shelf sat a dusty jar of marbles, the exact ones he used to lose and occasionally win, playing with neighborhood kids. His old baseball glove lay cracked, but intact. And on the desk, just where he'd left it decades ago, was the wooden model airplane his father helped him build. Thomas picked it up carefully. A tear slid down his cheek before he could stop it. He wasn't alone in this house. Memories breathed here, warm, patient, waiting. That a soft knock on the doorframe startled him. "Hello? You must be Mr. Miller." Thomas turned. A woman in her late 60s, carrying a tray of lemonade, stood in the hallway. She smiled gently. "I'm Mary Thompson. I live next door. I saw your car and thought you might like something to drink." Thomas blinked, surprised. "Mary Thompson? Little Mary with the pigtails." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "That's me, though the pigtails retired a long time ago." He grinned. "I'll be darned. I used to push you on that old tire swing." "And you pushed too hard," she teased. "I thought I'd take off like a rocket." They shared a long, warm silence, two old souls suddenly young again. "Mind if I come in?" she asked. "Please," he said. "Feels good to see a familiar face." She stepped in, looking around the room with soft eyes. "Your mother would have been happy you came back." He lowered his head. "I should have come sooner. She knew you were out there living your life. That's what she wanted." Thomas exhaled slowly, letting the guilt loosen its grip. They spent the next hour walking through the house together, revisiting the past like flipping through a cherished photo album. She remembered the time he fell out of the oak tree and sprained his wrist. He remembered how she cried harder than he did. She remembered his mother's famous peach cobbler. He remembered her father fixing his bike chain every summer. Then, as they reached the back porch, Mary paused. "I think you should see something," she said quietly. She walked toward the oak tree. Beneath it was a small wooden bench, freshly painted white. Thomas didn't recognize it. "I put this here a few years ago," she said softly. "Your mother and I used to sit here. After she passed, I'd come out and talk to her." "Silly, I know." Thomas felt his throat tighten. "No, not silly at all." He lowered himself onto the bench. The view stretched across the yard, the same view he'd grown up with. The breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass and something else. "Peace." Mary sat beside him. "This place still has life," she said. Just need someone to love it again. I'm not sure I can start over, he whispered. She looked at him gently. Who says you have to start over? Maybe you just continue. They sat quietly, two old friends finding comfort in shared history. After a long moment, Thomas spoke. I've felt lost these past few years, like the world moved on without me. She nodded. You're not alone, Thomas. We all feel that way sometimes. But maybe this is your new beginning. He let the words settle deep. A new beginning. At 70-2. It didn't sound impossible. It sounded right. He looked at the house. His mother's laughter still lived in those walls. His childhood still played through those rooms. His father's voice still echoed in the porch swing. And sitting beside him was someone who remembered it all. Someone who remembered him. He turned to Mary. Would you help me fix this place up? One room at a time. She smiled, eyes crinkling the way they once did when they were children caught in summer mischief. I'd like that, she said, for the first time in years. Thomas felt the tightness in his chest eased. He wasn't just returning to a house. He was returning to himself. And as the sun dipped behind the oak tree, casting long golden shadows across the yard, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time.